possible. Thank you all so much for being here. Our wonderful board members, Reverend Selena Fox, who is the head minister and high priestess at Circle Sanctuary, to start us off with an opening prayer.
Thank you, Bonnie. We gather together tonight from many faith traditions and communities from across Wisconsin and beyond. We welcome all joining us live via Zoom and via Facebook, and all joining us later. Let us celebrate and converge our beautiful diversity in sacred harmony as we begin our annual meeting of Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice. In the next few moments of quiet, let us attune to the divine, each in our own way, according to the religious and or spiritual traditions we align with. Divine, we call to you, we honor you, we know you as one and in many forms, by many names, as creator, as sacred source, as love. Divine, bless and guide our annual meeting and 11th anniversary celebration tonight. Divine, bless and guide Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice and the many facets of our work for equity, liberty, and justice for all. Divine, send blessings of care, healing, resilience, and support to the LGBTQ+ community on this first day of June, the start of Pride Month, and throughout the year. And divine, bless and guide each of us in our time together tonight and in the times to come as we grow in understanding and in collaborations for a healthier, more sustainable, more just world. So be it. Amen. Aho, Ashe, Namaste, Salam, Shalom, blessed be.
Thank you, Selena. That was beautiful. Tonight, we're celebrating how far we've come in the last 11 years, and we're looking forward to what we're going to be doing as we enter into our 12th year. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from two tremendous advocates in our state legislature for justice and hear about their work to promote the Economic Justice Bill of Rights. We're also going to honor tonight an amazing and tireless champion for people who are incarcerated and hear about his years of work providing spiritual support for people our society has forgotten. Before we turn to our speakers, though, I want to thank all of our amazing volunteers, our hardworking board, so many folks, I can't name them all, but without all of you, none of our work would get done. And I want to express a deep thanks and appreciation tonight to our amazing donors. You're the heroes of the work that we do, and without you, we really couldn't do anything at all. Some of our major donors that I particularly want to name and thank tonight: Kathy and Tim Mazer, our anonymous donor, you know who you are, Trusted Elections Fund, the Jewish Federation of Madison, the Voting Rights Lab, State Voices, Helene Nelson, Bethany United Methodist Church, Reverend Larry Sexy, Professor Chuck Cohen, Joe Silverberg, Jim and Nan Youngerman, and those folks who, leading up to tonight's event, donated $1,000 or more to kick off tonight's annual appeal: Joanna Burke, Hannah Rosenthal, and Linda Rivitz, and all of you who have contributed at any level. There's too many of you to name, but know that your support is absolutely essential to our work. and the names of our board, our volunteers, our steering committees, our donors, and our staff and our consultants all can be found in our brand new annual report, which you can find on Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice website. Finally, please tonight help us reach our fundraising goal of $15,000 toward our annual campaign. Thanks to a generous matching gift from our anonymous donor and the gifts we've received going into tonight, we're already 2/3 of our way there. We've already raised almost $10,000. I cannot tell you how deeply I appreciate that support. Please help us tonight to get all the way and even over the top. Your support will help us to continue the fight, to get every eligible person registered and out to vote, to combat the perniciousness of white Christian nationalism and racism, to serve our immigrant, refugee, and asylum-seeking siblings, to address the social systems that keep people in poverty and lead to unequal health outcomes, and to break down the barriers between faith communities so we can all join together to create that beloved community that we all want to see. Please join us in this work ahead, and please give as generously as you are able. To keep up with our many different programs, our initiatives, our events, to get our calls to action, please sign up to receive our e-newsletter. Later tonight, you'll hear more about our work, but for right now, I want to introduce our amazing speakers. We will have time after their presentations for Q&A. If you're on Zoom, please put your questions in the chat. If you're following us on Facebook, please put your comments and questions in the comment section on Facebook. Tonight, we're really privileged and honored to welcome and hear from Representatives Francesca Hong and Representative Kristina Shelton. Representative Hong represents District 76 in Madison, and Representative Shelton represents District 90 in Green Bay. And they are co-authors of the Economic Justice Bill of Rights, which they reintroduced to the Assembly on March 9th. Representative Hong is the first Asian American member of the Wisconsin State Legislature, and along with her husband, she's the chef owner of Morris Ramen. She's a tireless fighter for workers' rights, immigration justice, environmental justice, and justice and equity for all in Wisconsin. Representative Shelton began as a health and phys ed teacher, and then got her master's degree in health promotion management and worked in nonprofits for health and wellness. She spearheads, along with Representative Hong, the Healthy School Meals Coalition. Tonight, we're going to hear about their work for justice and the Economic Justice Bill of Rights. So I'm going to turn it over to them now to hear about this important work.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. Good evening, everyone. I'm State Representative Francesca Hong, and we are so, alongside with my colleague, Representative Kristina Shelton, we are incredibly honored to be sharing space with you all. We first want to start with some thank yous as well. And Bonnie, I would say if there's a bunch of Bonnie Margulies coming into this space, that's really not a bad thing. But we know that we are in solidarity with people who have been in this work for many, many years, and we are grateful for your consistent, relentless leadership in helping to eliminate suffering and fight for a more just world. Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice has been integral in helping legislators like ourselves shape the Economic Justice Bill of Rights. And we know that through organizing, through radical care, and we're going to talk about here radical friendship, we have the ability to collectively bring good social change to our state and to all those who are deserving. I'm going to hand it over now to my colleague, Kristina Shelton, to introduce and do some thank yous as well. And then we'll go right into our presentation.
Thank you, Francesca, and thank you, Bonnie, and everyone for being here. As Rep Hong said, it's such an honor to share this space with each of you and to be able to talk about the work that we have been doing together collectively for almost 3 years now. And I have to tell you, just personally, when Francesca and I were talking about what we wanted to talk with you all tonight, we just kept coming back to friendship and the work that we do together, and how she and I have gotten to know each other in politics when we started off as candidates back in 2020, and to tell that story about how the work that we do in the legislature has not only transformed us and our friendship, but is transforming communities around the state in a place of common care and common investment. So it's really an honor to be here tonight, and I hope that you enjoy what we have to share tonight and are looking forward to some wonderful Q&A, I'm sure, at the end of our talk this evening. So I want to just start here by kind of taking us a step back and talking a few moments about how Rep. Hong and I got to know each other back in 2020. So before Fran and I started in the legislature, we did not know each other. I was a mom and an educator. I was on the school board in Green Bay, and Fran was in Madison running a restaurant and being a community activist, and we're on our own spaces, and all of a sudden we find ourselves running for state assembly in 2020, both of us in primaries, myself in a primary, Rep. Hong in a primary. And, you know, when we came through that primary, I have to say I was a little bit of a fangirl for Rep. Hong before she was a representative. And the moment that I saw it, I had to share this tweet here when she won her primary back on August 11th of 2020. And I saw this tweet. I won my primary that night, and I saw her tweet, and she said, "I'm glad I didn't shave my legs for this." And I had to share that with you all because I remember seeing this tweet and thinking, who is this woman and how do I work alongside her? And when I started to learn more about Francesca and her background as an advocate, as an activist, and as a community organizer, and our connections both as moms and people who just care deeply about our community, it really kicked off for us and for me a really important, loving, radical friendship that has shaped me both professionally and personally in more ways than I have time to share in this brief talk tonight.
Yeah, I will say I tend to get a little spicier on Twitter, and I appreciate being able to that Kristina appreciated some of my thoughts. You know, after winning the primary in 2020 and recognizing how uncertain these times were, I think, you know, with it was really important to find kind of togetherness and connectedness after running campaigns where it was difficult to connect with folks because we weren't able to have many face-to-face conversations. So being able to connect with Kristina and talk about values and really talk about how our identities could help us lead in the legislature, I think is what kind of kicked off this idea about how we as Democrats, we as moms, we as people who want to elevate other people's experiences in the legislature, that we can do that if we clearly state what we are fighting for. And so that's really where the Economic Justice Bill of Rights came from, is that we knew we needed a tool that we could share so that we could empower those around us who needed more access to the legislature. I think too often in politics, we see gatekeeping over process and bureaucracy over process and a lot of corruption. And I think that traditional media hasn't always been able to help us break down those obstacles from keeping everyday working folks who may not always have capacity or the headspace to want to get involved with the state legislature. How do we do that in a way that really helps communities feel empowered? And so the conversations and our friendship bloom from this wanting to fight for, wanting to center possibility, wanting to center potential, and wanting to center shared power. And that is really how the Economic Justice Bill of Rights came to be, was knowing that we had to consistently talk about what we were fighting for. So this quote To become what we need to each other and to find power in friendship is to become dangerous. I've been thinking a lot about these during our budget season, when we're seeing a lot of our values that we know so many Wisconsinites share not be reflected in policy. And we know that policy is ultimately one of the ways that we can give people agency to better their lives and their communities and uplift one another. And so why the power in friendship is to become dangerous, I think what it does is it helps us recognize who the opposition is. The opposition right now, a lot of the Republicans in power are operating from a space of hate, of fear, and corruption. And when we really dig into what friendship is, I think it can actually be a threat to those in power. That we can use our radical devotion and our commitment to building trusted relationships, caring relationships, friendship, that can be used as a threat to challenge the place where politics is moving, one that is so rooted in hate and division. The way that we can challenge that, I think, is to really, really commit to this notion of friendship.
And I'll add there too, this type of friendship is not easy, right? It is accountable. It is forgiving, of course, but it is difficult work. It is one where one must show up for yourself and for others, but also really commit to growth. And that growth, especially in politics, as you all know, can be incredibly difficult as we have increasing demands both on ourselves and in our communities and around the state as we fight for rights. And so this friendship piece for us really is really about that radical love, but also accountability to one another. So I want to pivot here for a moment and just talk a little bit about sort of how quickly things progressed for Francesca and I after we connected, after our engagement, after we both won our primaries back in August of 2020. And you'll remember that this was at the height of the Kenosha police violence. Sorry, my cat is yelping over here. I don't know if you guys can hear her. And this is the height of the Kenosha police violence with Jacob Blake. And we were, as you can sort of take yourselves back, we're all isolated, we're in our homes. We had seen sort of in the summer of 2020, sort of this massive uprising for Black Lives Matter and these historic marches. But at the same time, we're sort of isolated in many ways. And I'll also mention that in June of 2020, the city of Green Bay had the largest march in the history of Green Bay for Black Lives Matter. And so we're watching this happen, but like I said, we're also isolated. And so Fran and I had started to work with some other candidates at the time, some who were currently elected, but were running for re-election, and then other new candidates, about what could we do as candidates, not yet elected, to really be at the forefront of this sort of commitment to organizing, but also really calling on our elected leaders and our community leaders to build a broad coalition to bring the change needed so desperately, especially by our Black, Brown, Indigenous, LGBTQ community members, those most marginalized. Really sort of reimagining what the work looks like, but also how we engage with others to demonstrate that we are not just political candidates, but we are people who are truly in the trenches with folks and want to desperately show up for them in radical acts of solidarity.
And this is where the need to eradicate systemic racism and talk clearly as candidates and future electeds about race in essentially every single policy that we would be discussing grew from. I think that we know eradicating racism had to be embedded into this Economic Justice Bill of Rights, and it was these acts of democracy. I think protest is one of the most direct forms of democracy that really inspired us to make sure that in these new positions of powers that we would be entering, in order to make these positions organizing spaces as well, we would have to commit and recommit to eradicating racism through policy and making sure that as Democrats, even though we were in the minority, we would be in the minority party, that we need to speak clearly about building solidarity across racial lines and making sure that coalition building, multi-generational, cross-racial, and multi-ethnic coalition building needed to be at the center of our talking points, of our policy, in conversations that we knew would be deeply uncomfortable to folks who had been somewhat complacent in the legislature. And so going into 2021, after inauguration, we worked on the Economic Justice Bill of Rights for all Wisconsinites. We knew that we needed to speak clearly about and consistently about what was possible, that the potential of each Wisconsinite needed to be centered in order for us to build a Wisconsin that worked for all. And I think that prior to inauguration, our work in meeting communities where they were, making sure that we weren't going to be siloed into being just legislators or activists from the cities that we were at, but actually meeting other communities, the diversity in rural communities, going to other places to campaign, making sure that we were speaking consistently to fighting for working people needed to be at the center of this as well. And so, you know, we kept trying to push the boundaries of what was expected of policymakers. And we knew that we needed to affirm the diversity of lived experiences throughout our state. And so we talk a lot about in the Economic Justice Bill of Rights, when we bring it to places as really a tool to say whether you're rural, suburban, or urban, from Madison to Oconomowoc, Superior, or Reedstown, we wanted to reinvest in people's ability to tell their stories and let them know that their lived expertise were their lived experiences were their lived expertise, and really commit to empowering individuals of their own potential. And I think that in building and crafting the Economic Justice Bill of Rights, we knew we had to draw on our shared history, that the collective struggle and in times of crisis, there were so many different sectors that would come together to meet those moments, whether it was in the arts, whether it was in folks who were committed to mutual aid, people who were in small or large business sectors, that in order to do this in a way that would be movement building, we had to reach each of those communities and really validate that their lived experiences, their stories, were things that we as policymakers genuinely wanted to uplift and help share, and make sure that the offices and the titles that we hold was one that we needed to consistently share and tell folks that they had access to. So it was then in March of 2021 that we put out our first version of the Economic Justice Bill of Rights.
Yeah, and this was the first big piece of work that Rep. Hong and I put out in March, right when we were first just newly in the legislature, 3 months in. And this was work that we started before, as Rep. Hong said, before we even were sworn into office in that fall of 2020. And so we really wanted to come out being very clear, not only to ourselves and to each other, but to our colleagues and into community members, what we were fighting for. And we're not interested in putting out a 50-page plan. You know, as Democrats, we like to show up and say, we have a plan. Let me show you how to help. And we were like, let's strip that down. Let's be really clear here. People deserve housing. They deserve clean water. They deserve healthcare. They deserve good schools. They deserve union rights. How can we really simplify that and really protect the American promise of the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? And I think the other thing here that's really important for me, and we talk a lot about this, is, you know, the important piece of remembering our history, because the American struggle, the struggle in this country, right, has been generational. I mean, every generation must step up and fight for democracy and fight for rights and work to expand those. And I think when we draw on our shared history, it reminds us that in times of crisis, we have risen up many times, and we will continue to do that again and again. And as this project has morphed, you know, and changed since 2021, we did reintroduce it again in March of 2022 with feedback from Faith Voices and other key partners that gave us feedback and said, hey, you're missing something, or hey, what about this change? And then in 2022, we relaunched it with Representative Mark Pocan and other folks at the press event. That's when we moved it to the assembly floor, which I think was a really exciting time for us to demonstrate the power of coalition building, and really to center the work of community organizers at the forefront of the presser, and really to have them leverage this project as an accountability structure for people in both the legislature and out of the building. And then, of course, we also added in a partner lunch at the end because we were like, well, people should eat, and we should go across the street to a nice restaurant and be able to share that social space for one another. So it's really been a beautiful process as it's sort of transformed since its original state. And so, you know, over the past 2 years, just a couple of pictures here about what this looks like. You know, we have been working extensively with partners on this and making sure that this really frames our, like I said, our caucus, our legislative work, our campaign work, our partner engagement.
So just a couple of ways that I see how this coalition building was actually taking place, right? So Kristina and I came in as freshmen and really wanted to lean into what kind of the jargon in the building is, in building or out of building, and making sure that we were taking the lead from movement leaders and coalitions that had been in this work, and figuring out ways to build trusted relationships so that collaboration was something that was welcomed, and we wanted people to see us as their trusted messengers. And I think that a lot of what has happened in the last 10 years because of the way that our state has been decimated by gerrymandering, corruption, and really too much consolidated power with the Republicans, that movement leaders weren't always recognizing if building allies in the legislature was worth it. And we knew that we needed to work to rebuild that trust. And so it was taking leads from neighborhood or organizations like Clean Water Safe Skies in our fight against F-35s, making sure that folks in the legislature, regardless, there's a picture of the representatives there, regardless of how long they had been in the legislature, that we were asking them to recommit to the values of the Economic Justice Bill of Rights. And then we have the photo here, leaders from Freedom Inc., folks, again, who had been in this work for a long time. Basically, the Economic Justice Bill of Rights really helped us elevate our leverage and our ability to communicate to other members of the legislature that we're going to build power by recognizing the work of people who have been moving to really bring justice to the forefront, building trusted relationships with them, and making sure that they see that we as legislators and policymakers, we're going to leverage our positions to help build power for them, and not and center that coalition building by committing to the Economic Justice Bill of Rights.
And making friends, right, Fran?
Yes.
And having fun and enjoying each other's company and showing up for each other in really difficult times, but also celebrating those wins. And I think when I think about these pictures, and I was telling Rep Hong earlier today when I was going through and sort of putting together the slides, trying to think about how we were going to present this to you, it was just so uplifting for me personally to look back at the beautiful people that we have gotten to know, that inspire us, that love us, that support us, but that we can also love back on. And it's really just such an honor. You know, relationships are the form through which new politics will emerge, right? It's these friendships that really are transformative. And so when we put out the 2023 Economic Justice Bill of Rights, we were really excited to continue to talk about justice as being the central theme, and about economic security being the through line that connects all of the other issues, right? And what we talk about a lot is that economic security is not quote unquote just what you do, your job, right? The money you make, but it is about creating investment, community investments and institutions of common care, where we take care of one another and we invest in one another. And I think for us, as we've been in the legislature now and going in our third year, our second term, you know, what we're seeing right now with coming out of COVID and in our political reality is that Wisconsin working people are facing very, very real and valid anxieties about their economic security and safety. And they really want to know if Wisconsin is going to be a place for them, right? They want to know if Wisconsin is going to be a place for them, not in just upholding their rights, but in all of their diversity. And I think that's why what this type of project is so timely and important, is because economic security for workers has never been less guaranteed. And if you ask working people, they understand that. They feel that every single day. They're living in crises every single day, whether it's housing or food insecurity or healthcare, or being harassed at work, not being able to access, you know, life-saving abortion services. And so Wisconsin people know that the harm they're facing is systemic. They are looking for a way to make sense of the chaos, and we are working and need to work alongside people to help them understand that the tactics that are being used by Wisconsin Republicans, these tactics of fear and hate, and quite frankly, manufacturing these sort of fake social wedge issues that are really to divide and distract us, you know, all the while, you know, millionaires and billionaires and corporations are making, you know, mass profits. Working people need to understand that those are choices that are being made by politicians and people in positions of power. And it's not a failure of individual responsibility why they are where they are. And so what we have found over and over again is that working people in the state, they need a political party, they need an organizing structure, they need a way that we are going to work collectively to fight back and really to win, right? Not to win so that I win my seat or Fran wins her seat, but really to uphold, when I say winning to uphold and expand the rights that you see in front of you here today, the things that we are committed to. And, you know, I really believe, you know, I'm a Democrat. That's not a surprise to anyone here, but I say over and over again, I am not an apologist for the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has failed working people and people for a number of years, and we have to be honest about what that is. But the Democratic Party is the organizing structure through which we actually can build those rights back. And I'm really proud of being a part of that here in Wisconsin, being a part of that work with so many of you here, whether you align with the Democratic Party or just these rights, to really ensure that the collective struggle for freedom and dignity and economic rights is really at the center of all we do. You know, and at the end of the day, I remind people all the time, we are the wealthiest country in the world, and the state's sitting on a $7 billion budget surplus. So don't tell me we don't have enough money to make sure everyone has their basic needs met. You know, that's just a bunch of baloney. And working people know it.
This comes down to freedom. And I think that the framework that the Economic Justice Bill of Rights provides is to consistently remind people that their freedoms are being attacked. But what these 10 values here, what it does is that it helps us center and collectively recognize that our freedoms and the values that we share for our families and our chosen families and wanting to care about our futures are all here in this Economic Justice Bill of Rights. And so each value really recognizes that it's with economic security that we can maintain and truly work towards freedom for everyone, which is ultimately one of the ways that we can achieve the justice that we know everyone also deserves.
And I just wanted to share this picture with you all, that this is from the 2023 press conference. Bonnie, you were there. So many of our amazing partners. This was as Rep. Kalen Haywood said, he said this was the best press conference he had ever been to. And I was just thrilled to get that feedback from him. But to me, what this picture shows is that we understand and we all know, and when I mean we, I mean all of us here in this space and in that, when we shared that room together, know that we cannot advance this vision, this work alone, that it's going to take every one of us to actualize the promises that we've made And that it's going to take, and we say this a lot, a multiracial, multicultural, multi-generational coalition to bring every single person with us. We are leaving no one behind.
And I think that combats one of the greatest dangers that we've seen sometimes reinforced with the Democratic Party historically is this reliance on elitism. And I think that when we radically challenge and reject elitism and focus on making sure that we leave no one behind, when we work with movement leaders like Angela Lang from Block, when we work with Voces de la Frontera, when we recognize, like, what Wisconsin Faith Voices has done in terms of recognizing power and coalition building, that we are really rejecting that elitism and recommitting to ensuring that freedom is economic security, safety, and ensuring that folks have access to agency. And again, I think that's what the Economic Justice Bill of Rights really reinforces.
And I have to tell you all, I love standing at a podium with Francesca. I could stand up there all day. And so many people have said that too, that you two could stand up there all day. And it's just been so inspiring to get to work with so many folks to talk about these issues and how we build a Wisconsin for the many rather than the few.
So what does the Economic Justice Bill of Rights look like in practice? How do we make sure that this framework is being used to build policy that continues to uphold those values that we outlined? And I think so much of it is investment, again, in that freedom, those family values, and the future. And our future is in our young people. And I think that when we have introduced legislation, Rep. Shelton has been spearheading this coalition for healthy school meals for all. We were able to take the lead from some incredible young leaders with Youth Empowered in the Struggle when we were able to build the Healthy School Meals for All coalition with members of Faith Voices, with school nutrition associations, with hunger organizations. Over, I think now it's over 100 different organizations who are committed to universal school meals. That is because that we are coming together with our shared values for making sure that eradicating hunger is part of that economic security and safety that everyone deserves. I think we have seen the values of the Economic Justice Bill of Rights reflected in our commitment to restore Roe and ensure reproductive health care is accessible, affordable, and available to all. In criminal justice reform, when then Representative David Bowen and I introduced the Enough is Enough package in challenging police violence. In our budget session right now, where we are seeing a massive coalition come together to save childcare accounts and put dignity into care workers, and ensuring that the people who are caring for our youngest are valued in the work that they are doing and have dignity in the work and remain committed to staying in childcare, which is critical infrastructure. We're seeing it with 9 to 5 and the folks who are at Main Street Alliance who are committed to ensuring that paid leave and again, a recommitment to care economy is elevated in the budget. And we still have an opportunity to continue to fight for childcare and public education funding. I think what's important about enacting the EJBOR and policy is that it helps us to show that we've got the receipts, that Wisconsin people are for bold, radical, transformative investments and an economic agenda that benefits the many and not the few.
So where do we go from here? How does this work continue? How do we continue to build off of the vision, the rights, the commitments that we've shared today? And, going back to the theme of this conversation, it's really around radical friendship. It's about relationship building. It's about accountability and coalitions built on care and not transactions. I remember running for office in 2020 and thinking to myself, I don't want to just show up at people's doors every 2 years during elections, during campaigns, and ask for their vote, and then show up 2 years later and report out on what I've done. I want to build a relationship with people that's real and honest and true and accountable. And, I think a part of all of this, yes, we're going to continue to build legislation off of the Economic Justice Bill of Rights. We'll continue to bring it forward. But I think more specifically, it's really going to be important for us as we see what Republicans in the state and nationally are doing, whether it's book bans, going after trans kids, continuing to double down on abortion bans, refusing to accept that childcare is infrastructure, moving public funds into more so into the private school voucher program, that we can't dispute their lies because they're not real, but that anxiety is real. And so what we have to do as movement builders and organizers is to make people's realities better. We have to transform the lives of working people. And that itself, right, when people have healthcare, when they have housing, and when they have clean water, that will actually help us to create a society where people have the evidence. They have, as Fran said, they have the receipts that what we're doing is working for them. And that this sort of radical improvement is actually possible. Dreaming and demanding the seemingly impossible is really sort of central to what Francesca and I talk about a lot, is saying the things that people think maybe are too radical to say or too big to say. And I think it's really important for us to put that vision out there, knowing that it may not come in our lifetime, but that march towards justice and towards equity is really important. And, we've got some great opportunities in front of us. We elected Judge Janet in April. We could be looking at getting fairer maps. And I believe we're going to have the majority one day, very soon, in the state legislature. I truly, truly believe it. Because if you look at the issues that we care about, the stuff that we've talked about tonight, so many people, we have the majority of Wisconsinites on our side. The majority of people are with us. And so when people say, well, I'm not left or right, you get into the issues, they're with us. Not because it's a Democratic issue, but because it's a working person's issue. And so we have to continue to lead as if we are in the majority, because we will be in the majority. And when we are, we will legislate for the people, because we know how to represent them, because we've been, quite frankly, doing the work in the community, and we know what those voices are demanding of us. Fran, do you have anything that you want to add there?
No, I get a lot of questions about, what you're saying feels aspirational. Why keep things so much about vision? Because I think folks are also demanding implementation and pragmatism. But the reality is our opposition and the Republicans in power are not interested in governing. They're not interested in pragmatism. And as Kristina mentioned, that many of them are perpetuating delusion and wanting to distract us from what is very real. And what's real is community building. What's real is care. What's real is people are tired. And we know that organizing and movement building takes a stamina. And in order to continue to build that stamina, that's why we talk about friendship. That's why we talk about relationship, because too often in the world of politics, it is we do not center each other's humanity. And I think when we speak clearly about the vision to keep safe and ensure that people have the rights, their freedoms protected, that we value relationship building and radical friendship and build a Wisconsin that is radically welcoming, that we continue to talk about, reinforcing that and believing in that. And I think we don't often give ourselves enough credit for building coalitions and recognizing that gives us power. And if there's anything from this presentation that I hope folks can take away, is that each individual who is committed to this movement has the potential, the possibility to continue to share their own power. And that's what's going to bring us a transformative change. The implementation, the systems change, the getting the fairer maps. A lot of people are working towards that. But I think what's so important to not get too caught up in that implementation and the strategy, but recognize that in movement work, in making sure that we're ensuring radical change, digging deep into cultivating care and taking care of one another, and recognizing the value of relationship building and friendship, it's just as important as being in there drafting the bills. So in conclusion, and again, in talking about this power of friendship, recognize that it's in friendship that can move us from charity to justice. It's in friendship that we can build bridges and not just constantly search for common ground, that we can move across communities and build towards collective liberation. That friendship can ultimately connect us, empower us, advocate for change. This radical act is incredibly powerful. And I think that both Rep. Shelton and I, we are deeply, deeply grateful for the work of this coalition here with Wisconsin Faith Voices, and your commitment to really transforming our state and building justice in a way that is sustainable because it is rooted in friendship.
Thank you so much, Rep. So we'll pause there, Bonnie. Thank you so much. I think we'll open it up to questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I hope, yeah, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for your work, for your passion and commitment, and for your sharing that passion and commitment with us tonight. We have time for just one or two questions. If anybody has anything that they want to ask or a comment, please put it in the chat. And I just wanted to say how very much I appreciate your work and how much it resonates with the work that Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice does. I just noted a couple of things. The first line, the first item in the Economic Justice Bill of Rights talks about dignity at work, and that's the name of the Workers' Rights Coalition that we run, that we've been running with Worker Justice Wisconsin for 7 years now. So I love seeing that language up front and center. At the end, moving from charity to justice is our tagline, and is the name of our advocacy workshop. So I love seeing that language as well. And I really appreciate how open you both have been to hearing comments and feedback and incorporating that feedback in the next iteration of the Economic Justice Bill of Rights. And what you all saw tonight was the 10 points, but there's quite a lengthy preamble before that, and it talks about all the different people in Wisconsin and the different sectors of our community who are deserving of these rights. And among them were included people who live here regardless of their country of origin. And we really appreciate your hearing that from us and incorporating that into the language of the bill. One question that we get all the time, and I know you touched on this some, when we talk about advocacy and the importance of reaching out to your elected officials, so often these days we hear, well, my elected official is not with me. And is there really any point? Am I just wasting my time? If I call my elected official and I already know they don't share my values or they don't believe what I believe. So I wanted to hear from your perspective as people who are in the building, what is the impact and the strength and the power of constituents calling their elected officials, even if they feel like they're not going to hear me?
Yes, we get that quite often as well. I think Kristina and I can attest to folks who we are in spaces where their representative is not responsive and complacent, and we know that some of that stems from gerrymandering and unfair maps. But I think we have to be relentless in keeping those receipts that you are reaching out, that these representatives are undermining democracy by not responding to their constituents, and that we in this age have the ability to take it straight to press, to show the receipts that I've reached out to my legislator, and hold their feet to the fire and say I've not gotten a response. And now that we have an opportunity to potentially see fairer maps, that we can continue to leverage that communication and that relentless outreach to say, well, if you're not going to respond to me, I want to find someone who will.
I'll add to that and just say that that's actually how I started getting involved in politics, was because I didn't see myself represented in the people that were representing me, both locally and at the state level, even though my previous state representative was a Democrat, and I primaried him in 2020. And so for me, because I didn't feel that connection was creating change, I turned towards my community and I really focused on organizing. And so I think it's a both and, right? It's hold them accountable and make sure that your voice is heard, but also remember that you have the majority of people on your side. And if we can talk to people about our shared values, we can get more people to be to care about electoral politics, or to just knock doors, or to just talk about our shared values. And I think when we sort of, like we said, remove that transactional nature of politics into a relationship forming space, I think that's where people really open up and blossom and sort of become vulnerable and are willing to maybe grow and shift and engage in politics in a way that feels different, but might feel more real.
Thank you. Somebody in the chat wanted to lift up some of the language, building bridges and not just searching for common ground, and how important that message is. We do have one question in the chat, and then we're going to move ahead in our agenda. Briefly, what do the promises, or what does the Economic Justice Bill of Rights say about state funding for private or religious schools? And I know there is language in there about education.
Yeah, so the statement for education is number 2, adequately funded public education and affordable, accessible childcare. We link those two things together. So we don't explicitly talk about vouchers or state funding going into the private voucher school program, but I think it is implied through the adequately fund public schools. But that's sort of where, you know, you're trying to simplify something, but also sort of signify to communities how you feel about particular issues. So that's what the document says. But as the ranking member on the Assembly Committee for Education, that is something that certainly and Representative Hong is on that committee with me, that we talk extensively about and are working to ensure that we address that issue. Fran, I don't know if you have anything you want to add there.
We know that the executive committee or joint finance is going to be meeting to talk about education funding in the coming weeks here. And like Kristina said, we're going to continue to say that everyone in Wisconsin deserves access to fully funded public schools. And I think whether or not, where people choose to send their students, that's not, the conversation, or we don't want to be infringing on any of that. But I think where the Economic Justice Bill of Rights is and where our framework is that it's a right for everyone to have access to fully funded and well-resourced schools.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for your work. It's really inspiring. And, Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice is deeply committed to working with you to help forward this work and see they become not aspirational, but reality. So thank you so much. And I just want to remind folks, if you're able tonight to make any kind of contribution to Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, we've been getting some donations in, and we really deeply appreciate your support. And I'm going to ask one of our board members, Professor Chuck Cohen, who's been monitoring the Facebook page tonight and also looking to see our donations. Chuck, do you have a report for us as we're a little bit more than midway through our evening?
Yes, Bonnie. Before the event, we had some gifts targeted for this event. They amounted to about $270. Thus far tonight, we've received an additional $661. So at the moment, we're at $931.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chuck, for keeping track of that for us. And thank you all those of you who have made donations. We really appreciate it. Again, our work could not continue without this support. I'm going to switch gears a little bit now. One of the things that we do at our annual celebration is we present our annual Voice for Justice Award. to an individual or to an organization that really exemplifies our values of trying to build a more just, equitable, and compassionate Wisconsin, and does it through a religious lens or as a person of faith. And so every year we present our Voice for Justice Award. And I am going to turn it over right now to our board president, Reverend Larry Sexy, who is going to introduce our awardee this evening.
Thank you, Bonnie. I appreciated our speakers this evening, and I want to come back to that theme of radical friendship. And I want to give a heads up to my fellow board member, Reverend Willie Briscoe. I hope, Willie, you're following. I've known Reverend Jerry Hancock for some time now. I want to get some of the formalities out of the way. Jerry's an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ. He entered the ordained ministry, I think as a layperson. He was in ministry long before that, after working for more than 30 years as an attorney in the criminal justice aspects of public policy. In February of 2006, Reverend Hancock became the director of the Prison Ministry Project. The project is an outreach ministry of the UCC. Its challenge is to serve prisoners, victims, and their families, engage the wider church in prison issues, and to be an advocate for prison reform. Willie and Jerry are two people that I count as friends, and that term radical friendship, I think, applies to both. Their careers parallel one another. Both spent a lifetime dealing with a criminal justice system and seeing the injustice baked into that system, the racial injustice in that system. But both, having finished that course in their life, became ordained ministers. And Jerry, I still remember one of my first conversations with you. I was kind of taken aback when you said that you became a minister so that you would have a voice and that you could speak out on issues that were important to you. And I know that you had been in the Doyle administration. And as a lowly parish pastor, at least that's what I thought. I thought, why in the world does he think he'll have more influence as an ordained clergy person? Enter Willie. Both of you have inspired me to realize that people of faith have a voice, and we need to use it. And we need to express our deep values and convictions, as you've heard our speakers this evening share. Both Jerry, Willie, and I come from a tradition where our rabbi, Rabbi Jesus, has said, "I call you friends." And that means so much because those friendships can be transformative. So it is my privilege and distinct honor to present Reverend Jerry Hancock with this year's Voice for Justice Award and ask him to share a few words.
Well, thank you, Larry, old friend. It's really dangerous to give a lawyer and a preacher an opportunity to speak. But I'm really overcome with this honor. And just let me say this, that on behalf of the volunteers in the Prison Ministry Project and the more than 1,000 men and women inside Wisconsin prisons that have joined us in our programs, I'm honored on their behalf to accept this award. For the past 17 years, our work has been guided by some advice from an ancient source. We are to work for justice, to challenge those systems that demean, depress, and destroy the lives of our brothers and sisters. We're to love mercy. We're to work to heal the harm caused by crime, both inside and outside prison walls. And we're to walk humbly. We recognize the wisdom of people with lived experience who know more than we will ever know about injustice and the lack of mercy. But walking humbly, we all know that walking humbly is not walking meekly. We'll advocate with voices rolling down like a waterfall for justice and mercy. And on behalf of the Prison Ministry Project, we're so glad to be partners with you all in this work. So thanks again.
Thank you so much, Jerry. I think when I moved to Madison, you were one of the first people that I met. And I've just been so deeply honored to know you and so admire you and the work that you do. And I was really delighted that we had this opportunity to honor you tonight and to have you have a chance to share your work with us. It's truly inspiring, and it's hard work, I know, and few people really can do it, and you do it with grace, and it's just amazing to watch the work that you do. Thank you so much, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
So I want to take a few minutes to share some of the work that we've done over the past year, and there's a lot, and so I'm not going to talk about everything because it would take too long. I give these presentations at congregations all the time. I'm more than happy to come to any of your congregations and talk about our work, and I can talk for a really long time. So I will not do that tonight. I just want to lift up a few things that we've done that I'm particularly proud of over the last year, and some of the things that we are looking to do in the year to come. And you will hear as I talk about the many, many, many coalitions and partners. We do not do this work on our own. We do everything in coalition and in partnership with so many other organizations and so many of you. And we're so grateful for those partnerships. The Wisconsin Interfaith Voter Engagement Campaign is a project that we do jointly with the Wisconsin Council of Churches. And this year we also partnered with Tikkun Ha'ir in Milwaukee and jointly hired Rhonda Lindner, our amazing organizer. Over this past year, leading up to the 2022 election, we organized over 115 volunteers in congregations around the state who did canvassing for us, knocked on over 2,500 doors, had 1,000 conversations with people to help get people educated and registered and out to vote. We had 25 clergy around the state who acted as poll chaplains to help keep things calm and peaceful as people stood in line to vote. We partnered with the Urban League, the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, Souls to the Polls, Vote Riders, and so many more voting rights organizations. This year, as we don't have an election coming up until 2024, we're going to focus on training people in how to do advocacy and how to reach out to your elected officials to talk to them about things like the Economic Justice Bill of Rights. We partner with Wisconsin Council of Churches, Wisdom, the Interfaith Conference of Greater Milwaukee, Micah, and others on taking a faithful stand for equity and Teach the Truth Wisconsin. We have over 1,200 advocates and activists around the state who are working in their school boards and in their local communities for equity and to hold up justice for people of color, for LGBTQ students, for religious minorities, for justice and compassion in our schools and in our communities. We work together in this coalition to bring Reverend Jennifer Butler to Wisconsin in February to talk to us about the rise of white Christian nationalism and what our roles and responsibilities are as people of faith to counter that racist nationalist movement. This year, we're starting a new project to track legislation that either lifts up issues of equity. For example, Representative Hong and others have introduced a bill into the legislature to require Asian American Pacific Islander education into our public schools. So we would support that bill, but there are other bills that are banning books and that are attacking the rights of trans students. And so we're really keeping track of those bills and letting you all know when there are opportunities for you to stand up and have your voices heard on these issues. Our Dignity at Work Coalition, which we run together with Worker Justice Wisconsin and an amazing steering committee of folks from different organizations. We focused a lot around COVID, lifting up COVID education and the vaccines and getting people vaccinated, and really advocating for the rights of essential workers to be able to stay safe. And we are under the lead of one of our Dignity at Work organizations, 9 to 5, starting to focus on looking at the care economy. And you heard Representative Hong speak a lot about looking at care workers and the care economy and taking care of each other. So that's something that we're really leaning into and lifting up through our Dignity at Work Coalition. Through our Faithful Action for Healthy Wisconsin, we've been looking at the intersection of racism and healthcare, looking at the social determinants of health. And in the coming year, we're going to be bringing a pilot project to some of our localities, hopefully starting in Watertown, to do some educating and training around the social determinants of health and how to change the narrative and the message away from individual responsibility around healthcare and looking more broadly at public health and the intersections of the social determinants of health and how public policy conspires to keep people from living their healthiest lives and how we can change that. The Dane Sanctuary Coalition is the locus of our immigrant rights work, and we've really been struggling, as so many in the immigrant rights community have, with the lack of affordable housing. And even tonight, we are helping to keep a family in a hotel. And we've been doing that all year. And we've really exhausted our emergency housing fund and really look to you all to help us with that work. The lack of affordable housing, the lack of safe housing for undocumented folks and asylum seekers is really at a crisis level. We also, through the Dane Sanctuary Coalition and with the leadership of Dan Zimmerman and Deneen Grow, offer rides to Milwaukee for ICE check-ins and to Chicago for immigration hearings. We're one of the only agencies in the area that does that work, and it's so important, and we always need more volunteer drivers. So if you're interested in helping to give people rides who need those rides to get to immigration court or to ICE check-ins, please be in touch and let me know that you're interested in that work. We've just started having conversations with the governor's staff about how we can have a statewide response to the growing numbers of undocumented folks and asylum seekers and migrants in Wisconsin and the deep needs that they have, particularly for housing and for legal assistance. Our interfaith work grows by leaps and bounds. We were thrilled to get back to in-person for our 7th annual Iftar in 2023, our interfaith Ramadan break the fast dinner. Look to our next Iftar. We're already starting to work on it. It's going to be in March of 2024. We're just honing in on the dates right now. And we started a new project, and I really want to thank Chuck Cohen for his leadership and his inspiring us to create this new project called Interfaith Intersections, where we bring together people of faith to address different questions and have panels representing different faith traditions. And the important thing is that our panels are not clergy, they're not academics, they're not experts, they are lay people, and their expertise lies in their own personal experience and how they interpret their own faith expression. We also are very much engaged in LGBTQ rights. I was really delighted this afternoon to go to the Capitol to witness the 5th time that our governor has raised up a pride flag over our state capitol to honor Pride Month. We're working right now on our 2nd annual Interfaith Pride service, which will be August 21st at Bethany United Methodist Church, and our third annual Transgender Day of Remembrance service, which will be November 20th at Memorial United Church of Christ in Fitchburg. We also continue to advocate for bans on conversion therapy, for rights for students to play on this, play sports in schools on a team that reflects their gender identity, and to lift up the rights and safety for the LGBTQ community. So much more that we work on, but I'm out of time. So I'm going to turn it back to our board president, Reverend Larry Sexy, to say a few words.
Thank you, Bonnie. And thank you for that abbreviated summary of our most recent work. As we enter our 12th year, it's already been that long, as a strong advocate for a just, compassionate, and equitable Wisconsin for everyone who lives here, we need your support more than ever. As I was listening to Rabbi Bonnie, I was reminded that in many cases, we're uniquely positioned to do work that other organizations on their own can't. She mentioned that we co-sponsored the first Transgender Day of Remembrance, which has now become an annual event. And we are planning the first interfaith service to kick off Pride Weekend, which will be in Madison in August. We're bringing together as a coalition our partners and faith leaders to address the affordable housing crisis, which our speakers this evening spoke about as well. We're working with our partners on long-term campaign to change the narrative around health equality and access. We've mentioned dignity at work and this economic bill of justice, which I know Rabbi Bonnie has had a hand in, and there's so much more. But to continue this work and to do it effectively, we need your support. And yes, as a person of faith, I appreciate and know that we need your prayers, your positive affirmations. We also need your sharing your time and your talent. I would mention that currently we are in need of a treasurer. So if someone has those particular skills, you don't have to be a CPA, although we did have one. But we need that. We also need people who have a passion for social justice to serve on our board. And if you bring some particular skills, Jerry was an attorney for years. We can always appreciate that ability, those skills. Someone who has knowledge about policy and how policy is shaped. Anything like that would be very valuable on our board. But in order to enable all of that, we also need your financial gifts. So you can see the QR code on your screen. That's one of the ways that you can give. Use your smartphone, click on it. You can also go to our website or our Facebook page and use the contribution box there. Or you can mail your contribution to Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice at 7118 Old Sauk Road, Madison, Wisconsin, 53717. You can see that also on our website. And I want to thank you for your support. I want to thank you for being with us this evening. I hope that we can build on this theme of radical friendship, because I think one of the things we gain in doing this work is the way that it transforms us and enlarges us as we work together. So back to you, Rabbi Bonnie.
Thank you, Larry. And Chuck, I'm just going to check in with you one more time where we are with our giving.
Well, in the second half, we have received another $575. So with all donations earmarked for this event, we're at just over $1,500.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I so deeply appreciate all of that support. And I before we close tonight, I also there's so many people to thank, and I'm not going to thank everybody. Please do check out our annual report, which is on the homepage of our website, and you'll find names of folks there. But I want to particularly thank my board, who are just amazing, do tremendous work, and guide me and support me. And I just really appreciate all that you do. Reverend David Sinclair, our regional organizer in Milwaukee, Sarah Gilday, who was our development director for many years and moved on to a full-time job, which, you know, we were sad, but she's still doing all kinds of pro bono work, and I just can't thank her enough. Tiffany Hudson, who runs our website and does graphic design for us. Sierra Neitzel, everybody say thank you, Sierra. Sierra is our wonderful tech support, and she's been running all of our tech tonight. So lucky and so happy to have found Sierra last year, and she's been just amazing. Karen Torino is our volunteer bookkeeper and keeps our QuickBooks correct and up to date. And all of our programs and projects have their own steering committees. Our Dane Sanctuary Coalition has a steering committee and also an advocacy and communications committee. Dignity at Work steering committee members, our IFTAR planning committee, our Interfaith Intersections planning committee. We have a planning team that's been working with Dane County Emergency Management Office on a project to recruit congregations to provide short-term emergency shelter. Our partners in our anti-racism group are creating Beloved Community. So many people who do so many wonderful things for us. I appreciate you all so much. If you, as Larry said, are interested in being part of this work, please contact me about joining our board or being part of any of these initiatives. We really welcome everybody's involvement and your time, your talents, your energy, your passion and commitment to this work. So to close us out tonight, I'm going to call another one of my amazing board members, Rabbi Mark Berkson, to give us a closing prayer.
Thank you, Bonnie. O God, creator of the universe, our strength in ages past, our hope for time to come, we turn to you in prayer and thanksgiving. We thank you this day for the many gifts with which we have been blessed. You have blessed the state of Wisconsin in which we live, this rich tapestry of faith traditions, races, creeds, and national origins, with great reservoirs of mind, of talent, and of spirit. For the joy of community, the gift of diversity, and the vision of harmony, we offer our grateful thanks. You've told us at the same time, O God, through the words of the prophet Isaiah, to share our bread with the hungry, to never ignore our own kin. You've taught us that all we have, we hold in a trust for you to be shared with all of your children. Thus, O God, strengthen us, your partners in creation. Give us the wisdom never to overestimate our achievements, nor to underestimate our power to do good. Give us candor to criticize ourselves, yet energy and determination to bring forth the best that is within us and within others. May we work with you in building a community of giving hands and thoughtful minds, filled with justice and caring, fulfilled in our noblest dreams. May we, through Wisconsin Faith Voices, continue to bring our faith communities together, seeking to ensure that each and every one obtain a life of dignity and justice, ever pursuing the common good as together we all say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mark. Thank you all so much for being with us tonight. Thank you, Sierra, for your wonderful help. I will, of course, be in touch, as you all know, because you get a million emails from me all the time, and you will continue to do so. But for now, thank you. Have a wonderful evening. I appreciate you all so much. Good night.
Thank you.